go.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Ask Anything presented by Moser Consulting. I'm your host, Angel Leon, Moser's Director of Personnel. We're glad that you're with us for this episode of Ask Anything because today we're going to be discussing Cyber Chronicles with our guest, Moser's very own program manager and security engineer, Hersey Richardson. In this episode, we delve into the thrilling world of IT help desk adventures. Our guest shares gripping tales of combating spam, thwarting scams, boy, try saying that twice, and navigating sabotage. From phishing attacks to ransomware threats, discover the challenges faced by IT professionals and the strategies they employ to keep systems secure. Join us for an insightful conversation that uncovers the hidden stories behind the screens and offers valuable tips for staying safe in the digital age. Before we get to all that, let's welcome our guest, Hersey Richardson. Hersey, how are you? Welcome to Ask Anything.
Hey, thank you for allowing me to be here, Angel. Appreciate it.
Well, we certainly appreciate you for joining us and talking to us about this very important topic, because I feel like every time we talk about anything security related within the IT world, we uncover something, and it makes me just feel worse and worse about the things that we do online. But yet here we are talking about it. So tell me about a time when you thwarted a major scam. What can you tell us about this?
Immediately, one that stands out to me was a phishing attempt aimed directly at one of our executives. The email came through clean. I mean, like really, really clean. Made it like a regular vendor invoice. Same branding, same tone, everything. But the second I hovered over the payment link and checked the domain, I knew something wasn't right. So I pulled the full email headers, traced the internet protocol address, and sure enough, it was spoof. We ended up blocking the attempt, protected the executive, and later found it was part of a larger phishing campaign. However, what I'm most proud of, we were able to use that moment to teach the team how to spot the signs for themselves. And that's how we get better, not just by blocking threats, but by building awareness.
We're going to talk a little bit about how we build user awareness and all that a little bit later, but that's honestly your first major line of defense, right? Is making sure that people are aware to sort of spot some of those things that we see in emails. I mean, I was unfortunately a target of one of these things with our emails, where somebody spoofed my email and sent out a blast to over, I don't know how many users, and just asking them to look at a document where I had no idea that they had sent it. And so that is something that we just all have to keep aware of. And when I noticed that that email had been sent from my end, I immediately notified you and notified the team here, and you guys took action in making sure that that hadn't happened. And then we discovered many things behind that other businesses, that's how I got tagged, because one of our friends, if you will, in business with us, they sent me something inadvertently to them as well. So it's very scary. That's what I mean. That's what I meant in the opening, just the different kinds of things that we get exposed to.
Absolutely.
Angel, I will say, like, the more we talk about this, the more paranoid I get. And then that's not necessarily a bad thing, because I mean, some of them are clumsy. A lot of people have gotten the like, hey, it's me, the president of the company. I'm in a meeting and I need gift cards. Can you send them to me? And it's clumsily phrased and it's pretty easy to spot, but they're not all like that. They keep getting more sophisticated, better phrased. At some point, the scammers discovered spell check, and that hasn't been good, because it used to be really easy to spot them, and they just keep getting better.
Yeah, that's the scary part. I mean, the one instance where I was involved, they even copied my email signature. I mean, everything from the email looked like I had sent it. So except for the email where it came from, that was the giveaway on that one. But everything else, the body, even the font that I use, which is not the same font that everybody used, was copied, which is, again, it's scary, but what can you do, right?
The good thing is that through our training, it, go ahead and verify that email was indeed not legit. And then we went ahead and down a pipeline of investigation, locking everything down, making sure that everyone was aware, and follow up. So again, like you said, training users as our first line of defense is essential.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about spam. And I'm not talking about that great spam thing you get at the supermarket, but what are some of the most common types of spam you deal with?
I mainly deal with phishing attempts, mass marketing emails, and malware-laced attachments. Sometimes they're easy to spot. Other times, attackers spoof real internal domains or disguise themselves as familiar brands. What we do on our side is we filter using a layered approach. Secure email gateways, sender policy framework, domain keys, identified mail, and domain-based message authentication, reporting, and conformance. But nothing beats a user who takes 2 seconds to think, wait a second, does that feel right? If it doesn't, start your investigation.
Yeah, especially if you've received an email from the entity that they're trying to copy, right? So that way, if you've seen something come from Jim, and all of a sudden you get this email from Jim and it doesn't quite feel or look like what Jim would normally send you, that's a red flag.
Absolutely.
All right. So what can you tell us about handling internal sabotage?
I can tell you that I've dealt with it. One case involved someone on their way out who tried to delete a system backup and elevate their own access. Thankfully, due to user behavior analytics, those tools picked it up and we were able to tell that these activities were not normal. What we did with that was cut off the access, preserve the evidence, and work with both legal and HR to resolve it. After that, we hardened our offboarding checklist and reviewed all privileged accounts. You just can't defend the perimeter. Internal risk is real.
That's an interesting situation, right? Because you had somebody who was internal, who had basically the keys to the kingdom, if you might put it that way, and then they try to crown themselves on the way out.
Absolutely. Again, while we don't expect everyone to do this, there is a risk that internal sabotage will happen. Again, that's why we have training to kind of identify, which personnel may be at risk. And as long as everyone is trained on that, we should be able to identify them. But again, thanks to our tools, that also heightens it.
Yeah, definitely some Game of Thrones situation happening on the way out there for that person. So we talked about spam a little bit. Now we're going to delve into phishing. And no, I'm not talking about actually going fishing on a lake. This is a different kind of phishing with PH. That's something that's at the forefront of cybersecurity. So what can you tell us about possible red flags to look for when it comes to phishing?
I can tell you that unusual urgency or pressure to act quickly is definitely a red flag. If you're receiving an email that says, hey, I'm the CEO from X company, and I'm meeting with financial investors, I need you to send over the information with account numbers and contact lists immediately, chances are that is spam. The next would be sender emails that don't match the organization's domain. Internally, we set training campaigns to educate users on how to identify a legitimate organization versus a spoof organization. Typos or odd formatting. As you stated, spell check has gotten better, so it's a little bit harder to tell. However, those inconsistencies still exist today. Links that go somewhere other than what they claim. With a simple hover over a link, you can identify where that link is pointing to. If you don't recognize it, don't click it. If something feels off, just stop and verify before clicking anything. Trust your instincts.
Yeah, I mean, like Brian said earlier, the message about, I think back when that happened, Brian, I think several of us got it. It was a text message from Ty, from the owner, of course, of Moser, and saying that, hey, I'm in a meeting. I need you to grab some Apple gift cards from, I don't remember if it was a store, which kind of big brand store it was, or maybe from the Apple store. But it was, it was, the spelling was okay. The everything seemed fine except where it came from, the number that it came from, right? I mean, of course, those of us who are close enough, we have his number, so we know that he wouldn't be sending us a text message from a 2-something area code.
Right.
Angel, I was going to add to that. I mean, the old saying is true. Just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they're not after you.
I like to add to that. Just because you're paranoid doesn't mean you're wrong.
Yeah.
That's
true. I mean, and in an ever-changing world now with AI and everything that we keep adding to technology, of course, we've got to be more and more thoughtful about the things that we click on, the emails that we receive. Like we were mentioning earlier, if Jim is always emailing you and then all of a sudden you get this email from Jim and it's worded differently and it has links that you've never seen before, or it's pointing you to go here to do this process that you always do over there, like Hersey was saying, those are things that you should keep in mind, because no process is going to change overnight, or let alone from one second to the next. especially at your workplace, without any prior, knowledge or any prior announcements. So just be careful with the things that you get, even from people that might resemble those that you often work with. So just be careful. Let's move on to that ever-changing landscape that is cybersecurity. How do you stay updated with those changes that we were mentioning? I mean, we talked about AI, we talked about all these different things that are coming for the technical world, for the cyber world. How do you stay updated?
I tend to keep tabs on alerts from Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, SANS Institute, and threat intelligence platforms. Good to note that I also review Reddit threads. It's a good place to find information as well.
Yes.
In addition to that, I follow technical breakdowns of real world breaches. I mean, literally, those are gold mines. They show you what the attacker did, what was actually going on, and what was done. Not just a theory, it's a fact. And I stay active in cybersecurity communities where knowledge sharing happens daily.
I want to go back to that, the breakdown of the attacks. Is there anything that stands out to you, or anything that you might have read in some of those that you might have thought, wow, this is new?
Yeah, especially with the Log4j, right? Log4j is still a lingering vulnerability in some environments. With the world of AI, right? Now there are generated face images,
Yes.
with the same likeness and voices that are in these kind of Zoom background or Zoom settings that appear to be legitimate if you're not paying attention. I see that scaling higher as AI continues to grow, as the hacker tools get better. But at the same time, internally, our tools are also going to improve, right? So the one thing I will say that stands out right now would be phishing. Absolutely.
Yeah. I'd say I agree too. It's interesting that you mentioned the AI generated thing, because we had a thing earlier this week in the water cooler channel, Slack channel here, about pet images and things like that. And when you're doing AI imaging on things like that, that's fun, where you're imagining what your pet would look like as a human being. That's fun. But when you're going the route that Hersey just said about re-imaging, a person's background and what that could do then to the face, it's scary.
Another example would be, hackers creating an image in your likeliness with your watermark in the background, or a company's watermark in the background, and then posting it to social media, especially sites like LinkedIn. That could immediately hurt the company's public reputation and also diminish your own reputation before you are even aware of it.
That's one of those scary parts about the regenerative imaging that we're seeing right now, is the things that could be created to hurt a brand, like you mentioned. So somebody could take that background that we're currently using here and make an image of one of us, and could damage our own reputation, the companies. But yeah, it's terrible.
I saw an example of that last week after the Masters, when Rory McIlroy won. I saw like a fake news conference of him talking about his round, and it was full of profanity. It was full of him talking smack about other golfers, and and if you know what to look for, like the clipping, it's pretty obvious that it's fake. But again, those get better all the time. And there are plenty of people who are out there that are perfectly willing and even cannot wait to believe that something like that is real.
Yeah, those are the things that scare me. Just, especially in this space now where everything is public, basically. Everything that you say or do can be taken, and just do something with this, like Hersey was mentioning. It just can hurt a brand, can hurt you as an individual, can hurt a company. So just be careful what you put out there. Make sure you have all the safeguards around what you're putting out there. So we talked a little bit earlier about user education. Why do you think user education is an important factor on the fight against bad actors?
Because you can build the strongest firewall in the world, but one click from an untrained user can open the door. That's why I focus on making security education simple, consistent, and ongoing. Phishing simulation, interactive training, short refreshers, games, those all help. Security is everyone's job now, not just IT.
Yeah, no, I agree. As we talked about through this episode, security is everyone's job, and we just have to be vigilant to what we're clicking and what we're reading and what we're really clicking with that mouse. Where are we going next? So speaking of where are we going, where do you see cybersecurity going?
The threats are evolving fast. We're seeing AI generated phishing attacks, deep fakes, attacks targeting third-party vendors and supply chains. On the defense side, we're leaning more into zero trust architecture, behavioral analytics, and cloud-native security. I think cybersecurity is going to shift from being reactive to being fully embedded in strategic business planning.
Yeah, it definitely seems like it's going that way. So before we go, could you give our listeners some tips to stay safe from online scams?
Sure. First things first, turn on your multi-factor authentication. At this point, there's no reason to have it off. The last thing you want is for somebody to have authorization to your account and you have the chance to say, hey, no, this is not me. Next, user password managers. This is important. Please stop using easy passwords, ABC123 or 12345. There's no need to be using that in a world where we have password managers. Allow them to set a secure password for you, and then you can go back to it with one password to log in and log into all of your accounts through there. Don't click on links or download files unless you trust the source. Keep your software and devices updated and check email addresses carefully, especially if money is involved. And most importantly, just pause. Think before reacting. That moment of hesitation can save you.
Yes, Hersey, I had to look it up. The movie Spaceballs was released in 1987, and the King of Druidia's his numeric code on the air shield was 1 2 3 4 5. And in the movie, they're like, "Are you kidding me? That's the kind of combination an idiot would have on their luggage." So 28 years ago, they were making fun of easy passwords. If in this day and age, when it's that much more advanced in the tools that they're using to crack stuff, if you're still using stuff they were making fun of that nearly 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Update your password theory, update your approach to your passwords, make them harder. Don't even do a password at this point. I've heard it's more a passphrase, and then you switch key characters with numbers and special characters to make it even harder.
Yeah, absolutely.
Make it a phrase that that you can remember, but beyond a password, 6 characters is not getting it done anymore. 5 characters definitely isn't. I mean, you've got to get it longer and more complicated just purely for a security background, like just to make it that much harder to crack.
Absolutely. So this isn't on the format, but something personal happened recently with my mother, and I think it's a good example. Recently, my mother sent me a text and said, I've been hacked. My debit and credit card had X amount of dollars taken out of the account. And I asked her, when was the last time you changed your password? She didn't change her password since her account was open. It just happened last week. I had her go to the credit union and check all of her transactions, change debit and credit cards, call the police, get them involved. I even asked her to just switch accounts. You're at the bank.
Yeah.
My wife's account 2 years ago got compromised, but they did it the old-fashioned way. They broke her window and took her purse out from under the seat. And then all of a sudden, I'm at home, and all of a sudden, my phone started buzz, buzz, buzz. Hey, all the two-factor authentication and all of these alerts like, hey, are you at the Avon BP trying to buy gift cards? I'm like, no. And then I was in a race against them to shut down every credit. I'm like, I'm calling the 800 number on one phone. I'm calling the 800 number on another one on my son's phone. I've got 3 different chat windows open for our bank, our debit card, all different things, like just getting into their customer service, like shut it down, shut it down, shut it down as quickly as possible. Because I mean, they're going to be flagged. We're going to get it back, but I don't want them to have access and to be able to get stuff for very long. I want to make that window of opportunity they have as short as possible. And the best way to make that window short is for it to not exist at all.
Right.
Absolutely.
I had a similar incident like that happen to me when I was overseas, 2016. I mean, back then we had, obviously, the internet and all that stuff was flourishing. And I mean, the same way it is now, but just a little bit, probably, it was less than a decade ago, but I was able to, like you were saying, Brian, just basically disconnect everything by phone, just call the bank. Of course, I was overseas, so it was a little bit harder for me, but through the greatness of FedEx, I was able to get a card the next day. So that way I was safe. But like you were saying, it's just a matter of trying to get ahead of them before they spend all this money that, you're still going to get back, because the bank realizes that, hey, this guy's not going to prance around $5,000 in 2 hours on 5 different gas stations, go try to spend $5,000. It's not going to happen. It's just a principle, right? You want to keep your money safe and you want to keep everything tight. So
it's not money that I'm going to lose because I know I'm going to get it back.
yeah,
but I don't want them to get a benefit of that. I want to cut that time frame for them benefiting from their bad actions to keep it as limited a window as possible.
Yeah. And Hersey, I mean, this advice, obviously, it goes to not just from a professional standpoint, but just to personal. I mean, we've been sharing some personal information here, some personal stories of if you have two-factor authentication on your personal credit cards, on your personal bank, on your, heck, even on your social media. I mean, that's things like that they're not monetary in value, but like we were talking about earlier, they represent who you are. So if you don't want anybody hacking your account and posting God knows what on your social media, on your personal social media, turn on that multi-factor on it too. Like any account that you have, email, social media, anything, turn it on. It's not that bad. And like Brian was saying, if you create your passwords that are way longer than 5 or 6 characters and involve alphanumeric keys and basically numbers and all that stuff, just make it harder for people to get a hold of them and do damage to you, because unfortunately sometimes that damage can last a while. I mean, there are some things that you can fix right away, but there are some things that you can't. So just be smart. And with that, we'd like to thank Hersey Richardson for joining us today on Ask You Anything. Hersey, it's been a pleasure to have you. Please come back as the world gets scarier and the internet gets scarier, so you can share more things that we need to know to keep being worried about our online presence. Hersey, it's been a pleasure. Thanks again.
Yeah, come back soon and make us even more paranoid.
Thanks again for having me. Cybersecurity is everyone's responsibility. And when we talk about it open like this, we all get stronger. Stay sharp out there.
Thank you for listening in to this week's edition of Ask Anything, presented by Moser Consulting. We hope you enjoyed listening to Hersey Richardson talk to us about his Cybersecurity Chronicles. Be sure to join us next time as we dive even deeper with our resident experts and what they're currently working on. Please remember to give us your ideas or topics to us through our social media. In the meantime, please remember to give us a rating and subscribe to our feed wherever you get your podcasts. Until then, so long, everybody.